The church split overnight. Some members refused to believe, calling David a liar and tool of the devil. Others, especially the abused women, found courage to speak up. Testimonies flooded social media, stories of manipulation, pregnancies, abortions, and threats. The name, Pastor Choo-kwoo-dee, became both infamous and hated. Politicians who once courted him distanced themselves. Sponsors withdrew. The empire he built with lies began to crumble. Choo-kwoo-dee fought back. From the pulpit, he thundered against agents of Satan trying to destroy the work of God. He pointed at his son and declared him possessed. He even staged fake miracles to prove his anointing still flowed. But no matter how loud he shouted, the truth had already spread too far. The congregation thinned week after week. The donations dried up. Even some of his loyalists began deserting him. But the greatest battle was not outside, it was inside his own soul. The spirits he once commanded now tormented him. At night, he woke to shadows crawling on his walls. He heard voices chanting his name, demanding repayment. His health declined rapidly. His once booming voice grew hoarse, his body frail. Yet his lust and greed never stopped. He clung to his mistresses, to his money, to his dying power, desperate to hold on. Jane, meanwhile, had finally broken free. With her brother's protection, she moved into a separate house, taking her younger children with her. For the first time in years, she felt peace. But deep inside, she mourned, not for her husband as he was, but for the man he once could have been. She had loved him, sacrificed for him, prayed for him. Now, she could only watch his downfall from a distance. One night, in his desperation, Choo-kwoo-dee returned to the shrine. He stumbled into the forest alone, coughing blood, his fine suit torn and dirty. He fell before the old priest, begging for mercy. The priest only laughed. "You think you can cheat the spirits? You think you can take and never give? Your son was marked. You failed. Now, they will take what they want." The priest pointed at him with bony fingers. "The spirits have chosen, you are the sacrifice." Choo-kwoo-dee screamed, but the forest swallowed his cries. That night, villagers whispered they saw fire burning at the shrine, flames rising higher than trees. They said the sound of a man wailing echoed for hours before silence fell. No one dared go near. By morning, only ashes remained, and Choo-kwoo-dee was never seen again. The news broke in the city like thunder. Some claimed he had gone on a spiritual retreat. Others whispered he was dead, swallowed by the very gods he served. The church tried to cover it up, but without their leader, it collapsed into chaos. Lawsuits flooded in, the government seized properties, and Fire of Glory Ministries became nothing more than a cautionary tale of greed and deception. David, though scarred, found new purpose. He dedicated his life not to exposing false prophets, but to rebuilding faith in the true God. He led small fellowships, refusing fame, refusing wealth, determined never to walk the path of his father. Kayoma, the choir girl once trapped in lust, became one of his closest allies, her voice now leading worship in truth and spirit, no longer chained by seduction. Jane grew older, quieter, but stronger. She carried the pain of betrayal, but also the relief of survival. She never remarried, never sought the spotlight. Instead, she raised her children with a simple lesson: power without truth is destruction. Never worship a man, worship only God. And though her heart bore scars, she finally found peace. As for the city, it moved on, but not without memory. The story of Pastor Choo-kwoo-dee became a whispered warning in markets, schools, and bus stops. Mothers told their daughters, beware of pastors who lay hands too long. Fathers warned their sons, not every miracle comes from God. And slowly, the glittering empire that once deceived thousands faded into legend, a dark reminder of what happens when men clothe evil in the robes of holiness. The collapse of Fire of Glory Ministries sent ripples across the nation. Once glamorous ushers now sold wares in markets, their dreams shattered. Once proud elders pointed fingers at one another, each denying knowledge of the pastor's dark dealings. Some fled the city entirely, unable to bear the shame. Yet a few, the most loyal, still clung to his name, swearing he would return like a messiah. Their devotion was blind, their hearts chained by the illusion he had woven for years. Among them was Elder Benson, Choo-kwoo-dee's right-hand man. He had managed church finances, pocketing millions while covering up scandals. When the government froze accounts, Benson panicked. He began selling off church property in secret, pocketing what little remained. Other elders discovered this and confronted him. The confrontation turned violent, ending in Benson's mysterious death, stabbed in his home, his safe emptied. The curse of greed had begun devouring itself. Journalists dug deeper. Skeletons poured out. Stories of women silenced with threats, bribes, and in some cases, ritual deaths. A pattern of young choir members who vanished without trace, always after private counseling with the pastor. Police investigations reopened, but the deeper they dug, the stranger it became. Witnesses recanted, files vanished, suspects died suddenly. It was as if unseen hands still moved, protecting the legacy of a man who was no longer alive. Yet the spiritual consequences were the heaviest. Those who had partaken in his rituals, choir mistresses, corrupt elders, shrine companions, began experiencing nightmares. Some saw snakes coiling around their beds. Others claimed to hear his voice whispering in their ears at night. A few even collapsed in churches, screaming his name as if possessed. The shrine had claimed Choo-kwoo-dee, but his shadow still lingered like smoke over those who had touched his darkness. David, though victorious in exposing the truth, carried scars deeper than anyone knew. He battled shame, guilt, and anger. Was he cursed for being born of such a man? Would his father's blood taint his destiny forever? At times he woke in cold sweat, dreaming of the night in the forest where he almost became a sacrifice. But each time, he knelt and prayed harder, refusing to let the sins of his father chain his soul. Kyomo stood by him, not just as a friend but as a symbol of redemption. Once exploited, she now found strength in faith and music. Her songs carried a new power, no longer seductive whispers, but raw cries of deliverance. People wept when she sang. She became a voice not of loss but of healing, drawing broken women who had suffered under pastors like Choo-kwoo-dee. Together with David, she birthed something small but pure, a fellowship that thrived on truth, not theatrics. Jane aged quickly, her once bright eyes dimmed by years of sorrow. Yet she carried herself with dignity. When reporters hounded her, begging for interviews, she refused. "What is there to say?" she would whisper. "Let his deeds speak for him." But to her children, she opened her heart. She taught them resilience, warning them of the dangers of blind faith, urging them to never repeat the mistakes that had nearly destroyed their family. But the story did not end there. In the village, rumors grew that the shrine was stirring again. Hunters claimed they heard drums in the forest at night. Some swore they saw a tall figure in a tattered suit wandering near the shrine, his face hidden, his laughter echoing. "Choo-kwoo-dee is not dead," the villagers whispered. "He walks between words, paying his debt in shadows." Fear returned, and once again, no one dared walk that path after dusk. The government declared the land cursed and sealed it off, but fences cannot hold spirits. Strange fires burned in the trees, animals died mysteriously, and one local chief who ordered the shrine destroyed died the very next week. Even the boldest men trembled when the shrine was mentioned. Some things, they said, were better left untouched. Back in the city, a new generation of pastors rose to fill the vacuum left by Choo-kwoo-dee's fall. Some were genuine, preaching with humility and love. But others mimicked his style, grand robes, dramatic miracles, lavish lifestyles. They learned nothing from his downfall, repeating the cycle of deception. The people, ever desperate, flocked once more. History, it seemed, was determined to repeat itself. David watched with sorrow. He saw men twist the gospel for profit, just as his father had. He wanted to fight them, to expose them all, but he had learned a painful truth: destroying evil at the root required patience, prayer, and wisdom. So he chose a quieter path, building people from the inside out, teaching them discernment so they would never again fall for wolves in cassocks. The scars of betrayal never left Jane's children. Some resented their father, others wept for him. Family gatherings were haunted by silence whenever his name was mentioned. It was as though he still sat in the room, unseen but felt, reminding them of the shadow that had once ruled their lives. Blood ties are never easy to sever, even when they drip with darkness. Yet, for all his evil, Choo-kwoo-dee became a symbol. Preachers used his story as a warning in sermons. Parents used his fall to teach their children discernment. His name became synonymous with hypocrisy, a proverb whispered in markets and bus stops: "Beware the pastor who shines too bright, his light may be fire that burns." In time, David married Kyomo. Their wedding was simple, no fanfare, no extravagance. Just family, close friends, and prayers whispered with sincerity. It was a quiet defiance of the empire his father once built: love without corruption, faith without deception. They started a small family, determined to raise their children far from the shadows of their grandfather's altar. Yet even on that joyful day, as music played and laughter filled the air, Jane sat in a corner, tears running down her cheeks. She was happy for her son, but her mind drifted back to the night in the forest, the chants, the calabash, the husband she had once loved. She whispered to herself, "May this curse end here. May it die with him." But deep down, she feared curses never truly die, they only sleep. Years passed, but the mystery of Choo-kwoo-dee's disappearance remained unsolved. Some insisted he had perished in the shrine fire. Others claimed he had fled abroad under a new identity. But the most chilling rumors came from those who swore they saw him, late at night, wandering near highways, whispering prayers to no one, his eyes empty, his presence heavy. He was not alive, yet not fully dead. A man suspended between worlds. And so his story became folklore. A tale mothers told to scare their children. A lesson whispered in villages. A case study in seminaries. His name was never spoken lightly, for fear that speaking it might summon his shadow. Pastor Choo-kwoo-dee became more than a man, he became a warning carved into the memory of a nation. But perhaps the cruelest twist was this: despite all he lost, despite his downfall, despite his shame, some still prayed in his name. In hidden corners, desperate followers lit candles, placed his picture on altars, and cried out, "Daddy, remember me." For them, truth did not matter. They were too broken, too blinded, too desperate. And in that blind devotion, his darkness lived on. So the story ends not with a clean victory, but with a chilling truth: evil never truly dies when people refuse to let it go. Pastor Choo-kwoo-dee was consumed by the very spirits he served, but his shadow lingers, on lips, in churches, in the hearts of those still seeking miracles without discernment. His empire is gone, but his legacy remains, a haunting reminder that when altars burn with lies, the flames will one day consume everything built upon them. The question now is yours to answer: will you recognize the lie before it takes root, or will history repeat itself? If this story touched you, don't let it end here. Leave your thoughts in the comments, follow for more haunting African tales of love, mystery, and remember, some of the greatest battles are not fought in the open, but in the hidden corners of the heart.